As we begin our two-day deliberations on exploring how can we continue crafting our collective narrative and learning from the past to ensure that we give ourselves the best opportunities to march forward, please join me in welcoming Yang Berbahagia Dato Amirul Feisal Wan Zahir, Managing Director of Khazanah, to deliver his welcome remarks and introduction to KMF 2022. Dato, please.
Distinguished KMF speakers, board members of Khazanah National Berhad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Khazanah Megatrends Forum 2022. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Khazanah Megatrends Forum, a long tradition of Khazanah since 2006. KMF 2020, of course, we had no choice but to cancel it because of obvious reasons. By 2021, we had all become accustomed to the virtual world. And last year, we conducted our KMF 100% virtually. And by all accounts, it went well as one could expect it to be. Now this year, we did hear some of our guests last year that, you can't replace meeting people face to face. So this year, we're happy we're able to, as cautiously as possible, to return to the traditional live KMF with some online attendance. In fact, since online access greatly broadens participation, it is possible that KMF going forward will always have some online components as well. Now, over 17 years ago, Khazanah held a significant and comprehensive internal leadership meeting to discuss strategy for the upcoming planning cycle. And this recurring meeting expanded to encompass so many components, including external speakers and structured discussions. And it became too valuable not to be shared with appropriate stakeholders within Malaysia's business and corporate communities. And so the Megatrends Forum was born, encompassing innovation, innovative and creative discussions about forces shaping our world, and especially their impact on Malaysia. Now, over the years, KMF has discussed many pertinent topics: artificial intelligence, our collective brain, efficiency, growth, geography, paradox, and so on. And standing here today, I'm most reminded of the prescient theme in 2011, uncertainty as normality, navigating through complex interconnection. This was about coming to terms with the fact that global stability was something we could never rely on, and that so many components of our global economy have a frail interdependence. 11 years ago, we either had remarkable foresight or we've been stuck in the same quagmire ever since. Which brings us to the situation this present day. We've all liked this year's theme to be something a bit more upbeat and optimistic, such as recovery and growth post-pandemic, but unfortunately that won't be the case. I do strongly recommend that you read the concept paper for this year's theme, Development and its Complexities, Steering Our Way Through a Perfect Storm. Now, I'll do my best to summarize it here, but I don't think that the theme has ever been more urgently pertinent. We are witnessing firsthand on a global stage just how interconnected and fragile our socioeconomic structures are. The challenge of economic recovery from the pandemic was going to be difficult enough. But on top of this, the conflict in Ukraine has further generated global food insecurity and yet another surge in refugees. Disruptive inflation is rampant. There's an energy crisis, increasing geopolitical tensions, and the worldwide specter of recession. The impact of both pandemic and war has been far and wide, demonstrating the complex interconnection which we spoke earlier. Now, as a pertinent example, many of us present here have some experience in the UK. Now, even in that developed country, there is talk of 50% of all households facing energy poverty this winter, meaning that they will not be able to afford the gas to heat their homes. And COVID isn't over yet, as severe lockdowns continue in China. Social tensions due to inequality continue to erupt around the world. And the impact of climate change continues relentlessly with terrifying consequences, as we have witnessed with floods, droughts, and wildfires all over the world. If we take climate change as the obvious existential issue, there's much work to be done, globally and collectively. Only a unified, worldwide approach stands any chance of success. I'll repeat that. Only a unified, worldwide approach stands any chance of success. But this does not mean that all countries have the same work to do or the same amount of pain to bear. There is nothing fair and equal about climate change. We've all seen the devastating floods in Pakistan, in which an area 3 times the size of the country of Portugal went underwater. And yet, Pakistan produces less than 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. To meet our critical climate goals, we need to ensure a just transition, which is much more complex and nuanced than simply a common standard for all nations. Developed countries have more advanced levels of technology and prosperity, which enable them to meet emission targets relatively painlessly. Adoption of EVs, elimination of coal-burning power stations, a predominance of high value-adding, technologically enabled jobs. But they reach these levels of prosperity by, in the past, freely generating the most greenhouse gases without any restrictions. Now, just 6 national entities are responsible for producing over 70% of the greenhouse gas already emitted in human history: the United States, the European Union, China, Russia, the UK, and Japan. Malaysia's contribution as of 2020 has been a mere 0.37%. New targets are not so easily attained by developing countries who suffer the most from climate change, and yet historically have contributed the least to causing it. So a just transition means taking into account economic factors, relative levels of technological development, levels of governance, reasonable, attainable standards, and employment maturity to give developing countries a fair chance to progress without penalizing them unfairly. Otherwise, this would be kicking away the ladder to prevent developing countries from catching up, as Professor Ha-Jun Chang describes so poignantly in his book. This is not to say that developing countries need not take climate change seriously and be allowed to drag their feet. Climate change is an existential issue for all of humanity. Only a unified worldwide approach stands any chance of success. However, our approach to climate change requires a fair and equitable approach, a just transition, so all of humanity can survive this threat and not at the expense of the underprivileged. All of us, all business and organizations, we all have an ethical duty to act immediately, not just wait for regulations to be imposed, which we only follow to a legal minimum. And this is why Khazanah has already defined and adopted a sustainability framework which encompasses environmental, social, and governance standards. We have published these on our website to make them fully public, and they include carbon neutral operations, our own operations by 2023, net zero emissions by 2050, 30% of board and senior leadership positions to be held by women by 2025, ESG-linked KPIs for key leadership positions in our portfolio companies by 2023, and we're not waiting to be told what to do. And these targets are very soon. The pandemic demonstrated many deficiencies, which we cannot allow to continue as we navigate a better future, towards a better future. Malaysia is still too far down the value chain of productive work, meaning that working from home option, which became so prevalent and celebrated, simply was not available for a large part of our Malaysian workers. Our past growth was based on FDI-driven, low-cost competitive manufacturing. Now, this no longer serves at our current stage of development. Long-term structural reforms are required, but these will require substantial resources. And future growth must not allow inequality to persist. It must be fully inclusive in all socioeconomic classes and fully include women, where structural norms have long impeded opportunities for this demographic. Now, all of this will be discussed in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, Khazanah's investment strategy is shaped by our overall strategic goal of advancing Malaysia, and also impacted by so many of the challenges and parameters I have mentioned. It is not enough to merely survive economically as a financial entity. We must ensure that Malaysia progresses and develops as a nation. Our 6 billion ringgit commitment to the Dana Impact Strategy, or Impact Fund, of catalytic investments is intended to grow capacity, resilience, competitiveness, and also to underpin vibrant communities. We're an active corporate player, working closely with our stakeholders, and operating either directly or via partner entities such as Yayasan Hasanah, Khazanah Research Institute, Taman Tugu, and Yayasan Khazanah. We seek to enhance societal value. And KMF itself is one of the means in which we do this. And over the years, we've been able to make KMF more accessible and inclusive. To deliberate on this year's important theme, we have over 30 distinguished speakers from a diverse spectrum of countries, including, of course, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, India, Sweden, the US, and the UK. Our 4 established panel discussions will examine the theme from the perspectives of markets, firms, society, and people, and supplemented by many other sessions. Our keynote address is by Professor Ha Jun Chang, Professor of Economics, SOAS University of London, and best-selling author. You must read his books. They're available. We have 3 featured addresses by eminent individuals: Tan Sri Nur Syamsiah Muhammad Yunus, Governor Bank Negara Malaysia; Professor Stephanie Stancheva, Professor of Political Economy, Harvard University; David Rooney, historian and author. We have 2 special sessions: Malaysiana, specifically about initiatives by Malaysians, which should make us all proud. Our usual fascinating innovation without borders, with a focus on science, technology, and sustainability. We have altogether 3 fireside chats, a discussion about education, which I'm sure will be lively and engaging, between Bill Walczak, Massachusetts Business Alliance for Education, and Alina Amir, co-founder, Arus Academy. We have other fireside chats. We have another fireside chat discussing the innovation ecosystem between Christine Tsai, CEO and founding partner, 500 Global, and Jup Tan, managing partner, Asia Pacific Plug and Play. And we have a fire chat with Patrick Cow, President GoTo Group. And I'm pleased to say that our Monday night cultural event is also back. Now, this has long been a popular counterbalance to our many discussions about economics and business, and it reflects a commitment under advancing Malaysia to community development. And on Monday night, tonight, the event is always something specifically Malaysian, a celebration of our arts, culture, and heritage. And this year is no exception. So after we're done with the main program for today, please don't hurry away. We're going to have refreshments, music, and a buffet dinner. And at 7:30, you'll be drawn into our magical Dreamweavers performance. So please familiarize yourself with this year's impressive and very busy program. This year, we're back to 2 lively days. And as you recall, last year, we spread those online sessions over 3 days to make attendance more palatable. So ladies and gentlemen, as usual, we will be distributing books, which we have written by KMF speakers, and all have some relevance in this year's theme. Edible Economics, A Hungry Economist Explains the World by Professor Hajun Chang. About Time, A History of Civilization in 12 Clocks by David Rooney. Queen of Tiles by Hannah Alkaf. Geopolitical Alpha, an Investment Framework for Predicting the Future by Marco Papic. Is over there, okay. And Mother of Invention, How Good Ideas Get Ignored in an Economy Built by Men by Catherine Marcel. And they're all fascinating and engaging, but you have to choose only one. So that's your difficult decision. Yeah. Let me draw your attention on the exhibitors in the foyer. You can interact with them online as well as in person. So under community partners, we have Yayasan Khazanah, Taman Tugu Project, Khazanah Research Institute. We also have United Voice and Lead Women. United Voice supports the disabled community, and Lead Women drives greater participation of women in senior leadership and on boards of corporate Malaysia. Under social entrepreneurs, we have Coco Loco Kids. You'll get to meet the youngest CEO in the country at the age of 11 or 12 or something like that, yeah. My Skills, Dignity of Children, all of which enable marginalized communities to make a living productively and with dignity. And for sustainability, we have BG, Eats, Shoots, and Roots, and Eco Nights, and which will all raise awareness of sustainability at a practical working level. So please do invest some time in engaging with them, learn more about the products and initiatives, and each of you have been given a voucher of 30 ringgit to spend at the booths. So I hope you have a very, very engaging, stimulating, and productive time over the next 2 days, and you find the KMF, this KMF insightful, pertinent, and enjoyable. And once again, to KMF2022, welcome. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to allow this event to commence with our keynote address by Professor Hajun Chan. Thank you.